And the reason I created the nonprofit organization, Willpower, is in honor and memory of my son. His name is William, so that's where Willpower comes from. When he was 24, on January 2nd, 2017, he took his life 4 months after he was discharged from the National Guard.
What's going on, guys? Time for a special friends and family episode of Behind the Uniforms. I'm very excited and honored to introduce you to Donna. I also feel like it's important to point out that Donna's not a whiskey drinker typically, but we're going to change that today. So cheers. I brought out some of the honey whiskey for you because I figured it's a good way of breaking.
Well, thank you.
Donna, you're from Suffield, Connecticut. Your son, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about today. Let's start there. Tell us a little bit about Will.
Thank you. So my son, he signed up to the Army National Guard when he was 18, right out of high school. And he did serve in the Kandahar region in Afghanistan 2012, 2013, when he was about 20, 21. And he struggled emotionally from his time serving. And he was struggling when he came back, lack of sleep and, the post-traumatic stress disorder and that. And sadly, when he was 24, on January 2nd, 2017, he took his life 4 months after he was discharged from the National Guard. And since the loss of my son, I was broken and devastated. And I learned a couple months after my son had passed, somebody made a comment that, I was hard on myself as a mother to have not really known, didn't see anything, didn't do anything to help, or I was completely not informed at all. And someone said to me, "Oh, Donna, it's not you, it's the military. It's a military thing. Like 10 or 15 people take their lives every day." And I was so blown away with that I, once I got, maybe within a couple days after that, I started Google searching and learning, and I was so blown away and so upset and disappointed to learn such a thing. And my feeling has been to learn as much as I can, create as much awareness in regards to emotional wounds and health to help prevent any other family from enduring such a horrific loss. To lose a child to suicide is crippling to a family, and to know that it happens so much and so frequently that I felt that I wanted to spread awareness, I wanted to rally support, and my mission is to build a retreat center for military veterans and first responders, like a vacation home retreat center. And the reason I created the nonprofit organization, Willpower, is in honor and memory of my son. His name is William, so that's where Willpower comes from. And it's really to pick up where he left off. And what I mean by that is he did try to advocate for himself, through the National Guard and the VA to get the help and support that he needed so that he could sleep and rest, because that's what started it all, the lack of sleep and everything. And I've just been committed to picking up the baton where he left off and to advocate for our military and our veterans and our first responders, those who are at highest risk to emotional trauma and emotional injury. And I really feel that if we can destigmatize emotional wounds and emotional health, that will immediately start saving lives. If it's like we make it more like it's just a checkup, and when you go through traumatic experiences in life, post-traumatic stress disorder is a natural response to an unnatural circumstance or situation. Sure. And to think like, oh, you're never going to recover or get better from post-traumatic stress disorder, I completely disagree with. We just have to finesse the care a little bit differently. And that's why I'm dedicated to trying to do whatever I can do to destigmatize emotional health and emotional wounds so that people will advocate for themselves, get help for themselves, and that others will actually take it upon themselves to maybe try and help somebody else, because it's there's more that we can do to each other and for each other, and that's been what I've been trying to do. And when you look at military veterans and first responders, they are the most at risk to emotional injury, and that's why I've put put them all as one bucket, because I also think within the National Guard and the VA that if you're serving, you're in the National Guard, you're not quite a veteran unless you're discharged. I mean, so there's a lot of silos that are in the way that make it complicated, where my feeling with the retreat center and with the mission is military veterans and first responders equally, so that there isn't any complexity to being able to have access to the facility. And it's really a vacation facility. So it's not like, first I want to build it. It'll be a single floor, completely ADA accessible, so you can be completely wheelchair bound and you can navigate through the whole facility as a home for vacation purposes, so that those who suffer similarly, I think you can establish a faster bonding and healing atmosphere because you suffer similarly. So you say you take a group from California, women with new prosthetics. Okay, it's like, ladies, we're going to go to Connecticut. We're going to do a week retreat. We're going to have a yoga instructor come in and say, ladies, you got new parts, let's bend them, right? Have therapy dogs and therapy horses involved. Have a therapist come in and talk to the group, about their so they don't feel as isolated and alone in their suffering. And I think that will help foster a healing atmosphere, something that would be of no charge to them. And I've started that about a year ago. And right now, as of today, I've raised $37,000.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Donna, you touched on something that I think is so important, which is blame, right? When something like this happens, we all immediately blame ourselves. Everyone that's close to somebody that we lost, we find that blame. We think about, well, our military could have done a better job. But the truth of the matter that I don't think anybody discusses is that we all as a society have a role in that blame, right? We have
all of us.
All collectively failed. We look at, and not to get political with this by any means, but we look at the ability to provide for everybody that just wants to stroll into the country, and yet we're failing miserably at taking care of the needs of those closest to us and those who have served and protected for the ability for people to come in and get that. How can we as a society, from your perspective, come together to first and foremost recognize what these men and women are going through? Yeah,
well, that's a really good question. So what I tried to do in 1 year ago, I asked Congressman Courtney, actually, I said, I'd like to have a meeting, because he came to my son's funeral, so I reached out to him and said that I want to have a meeting. I want a representative of the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the National Guard, and the VA, because I want to have a roundtable discussion, and I want to talk about best practices in a 900-page case study that I have right here, call me Joe Public, I'm not from the military, so there's a lot of things I don't know, and I understand that. But to me, there's some glaring gaps and red flags to me that I said, if we can just have a real conversation with each other, we can close those gaps. I said, so this meeting did take place in the summer, just a year ago, and I know right out of the gates, they said, well, because I said where I think we fail is the lack of communication with family. I said, I really think that's our number one breakdown, the failure in the system. And I said, and the reason is because family needs to be involved, and they immediately said HIPAA. And I said, well, it's interesting, because what I do for a living, I know the HIPAA laws pretty well. And when you have a veteran suicide rate of 22 every single day, what you're doing isn't working. So that means we got to go back and say, what can we do differently? It's not a HIPAA violation if I'm not asking you to tell me any specifics. Here's the helpful tools and resources that I think would help you support your military, your veteran. Yep. Anything, a phone call of any kind, but there isn't any of that. And in this meeting, I also said, I wake up every day and I completely try, shoulder a lot of the responsibility. I think it's only natural for a mother to feel that way when her child does something like that. And I said, to be honest, it's not just on me, it's all of us. Mm-hmm. The National Guard, each military branch, the VA, family, community, friends, the individual, it's all of us. It's all of our responsibility. And I said, ideally, it'd be great if we could put together an independent council, somebody that oversees the military branches in the VA, to look at a military serviceman or woman as their service journey. So if you're just doing recruiting, okay, if you're in training, or if you're serving, if you're transitioning from combat back to military life or to retire, that you look at their process as a journey, and that there's different care and policies and procedures put in place to kind of see them through all of that. Because somebody coming out of combat is going to need different care than somebody who hasn't.
Right.
And that was, one of the recommendations that I think would be a great help. But it is on all of us, and that's why I'm really trying to spread awareness and rally support, because most people really don't know. And the more people that you can share that information with, and just say, think about your elderly veteran next door to you. Go check on him when it's winter and see if you can shovel his driveway. Or if Tommy is serving and he's got a young family in town, get him a gift certificate to a local restaurant in town. There's a lot of things you can do, and people want to help. That's my feeling, that people want to help, they just don't really know how to.
So for people who you've got a lot of great events coming up, for people who may be watching this after some of those events happen, how can people learn about upcoming events that you guys are putting on for the foundation?
Good question. So on my website, I'll post blogs on the happenings. So it's www.willswillpower.com. That's my website. And in the blog section, we'll list any events coming up. I do have one November 26th. That's going to be at Yale University. And that is a emergency preparedness and response seminar. So it's active shooter, mass notification, emotional trauma and response and resources. Great speakers lined up, so it should be a really good day. That's November 26th. Then November 28th, I have a military veterans and first responders appreciation dinner social. So that's at the Hartford Yard Goats, November 28th. So there'll be appetizers, cocktail, dinner, raffles, live music,
whiskey,
and fundraiser. Yes, whiskey. And maybe I'll be a better whiskey drinker by then.
We'll work on that.
We will.
People who are not from Connecticut, who may be watching this all across the country, how can they help?
Reach out to me. Because I could, take all the help I can get. I'm trying to raise money to build a retreat center, and on my website has a few images of the proposed retreat center that I have in mind. And since I've been doing the fundraising for just a little over a year, just about a year, I've raised $37,000. So obviously your donations, that we're going to put it to good use. This is our way of giving back to America's heroes, in my opinion.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for hitting that share button on this video. It takes you 2 seconds to share it. And even if you can't afford to make a contribution, help out the cause, some of your friends may be able to. So, ma'am, it was an honor and a pleasure.
It's awesome. Thank you for sharing your story. Thanks for having me.
Guys, thanks for watching. God bless America.